Good morning, Internet, or afternoon, or evening, or middle of the night, or whatever time of day or night it may happen to be wherever you are right now. My name is SJ, and I have not done a blog in like 2 weeks, maybe only like a week and a half, but it's been a while. So I guess this time I'm just gonna talk about why that is and probably ramble for a while. So that's fun. But I guess the main reason I haven't actually done any blogging recently is because I'm working really, really hard to try and just get done with Georgia Tech and be done with that. And that's been taking up a lot of time. The other reason is because I'm super lazy, and I just haven't really gotten together the force of will to stand up here and talk to the internet. So that's another reason. Yet another reason is that I've been filling basically every minute of my spare time writing. Because just for some reason, now that it's the busiest time of the semester and I have like 2 projects due next week and 2 tests the week after that, and both of the projects require presentations and also papers to be written. And oh yeah, and I have a test in 2 days, which I should probably study for because I haven't. But you don't care about that. But yeah, I've been filling all of my spare time with writing because just suddenly and for no reason, my muse decided that now was the time to think of everything. But it's been pretty fun because the main thing I've been writing has been a new sci-fi thing, which is fun and I'm enjoying it. And there's kind of a funny, longish story behind it, which I may or may not tell today. I don't know. I just kind of do things as they come to me. But the point is that I'm sorry I haven't been making vlogs. Mostly I'm sorry to myself because this was a thing that I just kind of wanted to do. But that I have legitimate excuses for not making vlogs. But there are a lot of things that have kind of been happening that I could talk about, but that I don't really, I don't know, I'm not sure that I want to open those cans of worms just yet. When I'm still kind of easing my way into the internet. I mean, I've been on the internet forever, but by on the internet, I mean I've been on Facebook for a really long time. And I guess YouTube, I've been posting music on YouTube for forever. But I haven't expressed opinions to strangers, and that has been terrifying, humbling, and very, very educational, though not necessarily always pleasant. And so some of the things that I was thinking I could talk about would be some really good advice I've gotten on how to be an ally, which was really good advice to receive and has put a very different perspective on the way I comport myself on the internet, especially on Tumblr, where it's important to be supportive, but it's also important not to step on toes if you can avoid it. But yeah, that was a thing that I thought maybe I could talk about, but I'm not sure I really want to do that just yet, because as you can tell, I'm prime ally material, because I don't have that many socially inflicted problems of my own. The majority of my problems are internal. Being a woman, being aside, which for me it usually is. But again, that's a thing that I can talk about later. But what was I even talking about? I get really distracted when I'm doing this, just because I just kind of talk. I don't come into this with any kind of script planned out. So I just kind of talk, and whatever's on my mind is just what comes out of my mouth. Which is why oftentimes I'll start saying something and then go, no, I don't really want to talk about that right now. So that kind of happens. But that also means that I lose my train of thought really easily because I'm just kind of talking. And I go off on tangents and I forget what I was talking about. But I did remember this time that I was talking about sci-fi. So I write a lot of stuff. You've heard me say before that I write a lot of fan fiction. And that's fun. That's a good way to explore genres. And it was actually because of that, I think, that I started on this sci-fi project. Because I was writing classic 1960s Doctor Who fanfiction at one point. Which, yeah, I'm hella nerd. But my parents watched it, so that's my excuse, and also my reason. But I was writing that, and I decided I really, really enjoyed writing sci-fi, which I was pretty sure I would, because I really like sci-fi as a genre. I enjoy reading it, I enjoy watching it. Especially people like Ray Bradbury, which I could do an entire vlog about Ray Bradbury. I could write a novel about how much I love Ray Bradbury. But I won't, because that would kind of... Just read Bradbury. Anyway, so I started writing this Doctor Who fanfiction. I really enjoyed sci-fi. I was like, this is really cool. I would like to do this at some point. And I was reading a lot of sci-fi books also. And this was several years ago. I don't even remember how long ago it was. I think it was before I even went to college. So at least 3 years. Yeah, that was just kind of a thing that happened. And then one night, randomly, this is actually how a lot of my stories start. A lot of my personal projects that I write, this is the way that they start. I had a dream. It's actually a fact that, like, 90% of the things I've written originally, the idea from them came from a dream that I had. So apparently my muse works best when I'm unconscious. So I remember almost nothing about this dream, except that there was a giant eagle statue, and that was cool, and it had, like, glowing eyes. There was a city made almost entirely of plastic, which was really cool, and there was a huge clock tower, with, like, a green terracotta roof, and this is all I remember from this dream. Those are the only, like, physical details that I remember, except that I knew it was cyberpunk. I don't know how I knew, but I knew that it was cyberpunk. So I woke up and I was like, that was a really cool cyberpunk dream that I remember almost nothing about. Maybe I should start writing it. So I did. I wrote about 3 pages of it, of just setting up scenery and you know, throwing a character into it. And then I promptly forgot about it for years and years and years. Wow, those are my knuckles. Sorry. But, oh, wow. There it went. It's gone. Okay, yes. So, I forgot about this story for ages. And then, I was actually, I was on Tumblr, and I made some really, like, gigantic white people faux pas, and kind of started kicking the shit out of myself for it, which is, it's a habit of mine. It's a bad habit, don't do that, but nevertheless, it's what happened. And I started thinking about the fact that in this future I had imagined, because it was in the future, the cyberpunk thing, it was set in the future at some point, I don't know when, but that 99% of the characters were white. And I thought about that while I was in this sort of social justice beating me over the head kind of mentality, and I realized that was stupid. That was absolutely stupid. That has not even been my experience with the real world as it is today. Because I grew up in a very diverse community. Actually, no, it wasn't. It wasn't all that diverse. It was mostly black. I grew up in a mostly black community. Um, I'm not gonna tiptoe around that because that's what it was, and that's not a bad thing. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that because uh, you get to be around white people a lot, and they don't like it when you say things like black. They prefer you to say African American, but a lot of the black people I have talked to have said that they are not African, they are just American, and they are also black. So based on that, that's how I refer to that particular group of people. Um, and once again, we see the tangents happening. But anyway, so my experience with the world has not been mostly white people. In fact, when I came to Georgia Tech out of this mostly black community, I looked around myself and I said, where are all the black people? Like, this is so weird. Why are there so many white people here? Like, it was actually, like, it kind of freaked me out for a couple weeks. Because I was just so used to being somewhere where I was in the minority, which is an interesting experience. To be in the perfect example of this that I can think of was I ran track in middle school for a couple years, and I was the only white girl on the only black team, and that's pretty much the experience I had growing up, was being a white person in a group of black people surrounded by a society of white people. Because in film and movies and TV, it's really common that white people are far overrepresented. Which brings me back to this book I was writing. And I guess it is going to be a book because that's how long it wants to be. And so I got to thinking about it. I got to thinking about, why are so many of these people white? That doesn't make any sense. That isn't how things are, and it's definitely not how they should be in the future. Because I don't even know how far in the future it is. I haven't figured that out yet. But it's pretty far. Like, we're mining... never mind. The book is a completely different story. But I got to thinking about it. And I was like, well, there's no reason that this has to be true. So I'm going to fix it. So I went in and I changed the main character from a white guy to a Latino from Venezuela, who is also bisexual. I changed his love interest from a white chick to a first-generation Japanese immigrant. Well, the child of first-generation Japanese immigrants. I changed a coworker from a white chick to a Palestinian. I changed another supporting character from white to black. I made the implied gay relationship between the implied gay marriage between two people legitimately canon. And just doing those things, that was all I did. Just doing those things suddenly made the world so much more interesting. It suddenly made it so much more fun to play with and to be in and to write. And so my roommates are back. Sweet mates, not roommates. This room is really tiny and I couldn't fit another person in here if I tried. But just adding that level of diversity, and it's not even that much diversity. Like, I fully recognize that there are a lot of groups that are not represented, but with only 12 characters, you can only do so much. So just doing those little things suddenly made this world so much richer and so much more fun to be in that I just started writing all the time on this story. And I've written probably 20 pages in the last week, just because I was suddenly excited about it again, just because it was suddenly more interesting to me, because it was more diverse. So I guess what I'm getting around to with this is that futures where everyone is white, one, are completely improbable, and will not happen. I can guarantee you. Two, diversity is really fun. It's really fun to be a part of. It's really fun to write. As long as you can, I've decided that I'm going to reach out to people who belong to the groups that I am writing so that I don't mess it up. Because the worst thing you can do is misrepresent somebody. So I'm definitely going to be trying not to do that, and trying to gather information from people who would know. But you know, it's the attempt is certainly worth it, even if I kind of mess it up and have to go back and fix a lot of things. That's what first drafts are for. First drafts are supposed to suck. But anyway, yeah. So if you're writing something and you realize that the characters seem really bland, it's probably because they're all the same. And there are a lot more things you can change about a person than just their superficial attributes or even their personality attributes. And sometimes personality attributes just kind of crawl out of the woodwork, especially when you give your character a backstory. Like, there are things about my characters that only I know that are never going to make it into the book, but that give me some perspective on writing them. Like this, the main character I'm writing doesn't have a middle name. And this will never come up. It will never be mentioned. But I know he doesn't have a middle name. Because his mother was white and his father was Venezuelan, and their child got to have the last name from his father, and so his mother gave him his first name. And since he didn't have a middle parent, he doesn't have a middle name. And that's just a thing that I know about him that shapes the entire dynamic of how his family works that nobody else is ever gonna know, except for you. But you may never get to read this book, because it may burst into flames and never see the light of day, which happens. It's all right. It's pretty much already been worth it just to get to write something so different from what I've written before. And you always run a risk when you include lots of diversity of having token characters. Like, you know, you have your token black character in a lot of things. The thing is, though, if everyone is different enough, if you have enough representation of enough different groups, there is no token character. There's just people. So I feel like in order to have a token black character, most people have to be white in your story. So don't do that, because most people aren't white. Population-wise, I think most people are Chinese, possibly Indian. I'm not sure exactly. That went really far off topic really fast. So this is just basically, I guess it's turned into more writing advice from SJ, who is only 22 and does not know that much about writing. But this is just kind of what I'm figuring out as I'm going through it. And what I'm finding to be true, and the new and exciting things I'm discovering as I go through this process of trying to write better things, even though I'm not an author by profession. I'm a scientist, and that's why I do experiments. Even with the things that I'm writing right now, I'm experimenting, and I'm reporting my results to you, which I only just now figured out that that's what I'm doing. But it makes sense. So, yeah. People always tell you to embrace diversity, but seriously, embrace diversity, because it's really cool. And people are people. Fundamentally, they're not that incredibly different. People have character traits and they have personalities, but they also have cultural traits, and you know, a lot of other things go into a person than just whether they're bossy or whether they're shy or you know, stuff like that. And there's more than just 3 dimensions to a person, and it's really fun to find all those other dimensions in real life as in writing. A lot of people are full of hidden surprises, as as people occasionally find out about me. I very carefully present myself, but that's a story for a different vlog, if I ever get around to making one. So yeah, I guess that's about it. I am not really doing much apart from school, and after school, I'm also not going to be doing much on account of the not getting into grad school thing, which sucked. I'm slowly learning to admit to myself that it sucked. I've kind of been sitting in an elbow-deep pool of disappointment over that, waiting for it to drain, and trying to pretend that everything around me isn't getting soggy, which hasn't been going well. Things are pretty soggy. I was not terrifically pleased with not getting into grad school, but these things happen, and I'm gonna try again in a year. Retake the GRE, try to get some stuff, one scientific paper published, and we'll see how that goes. And if it doesn't work out, I can always be a train hobo. You know, I can ride around on trains and scavenge. I'm not completely not serious about that. But yeah, I guess that's kind of what's going on with me. All the rambling and everything. So kind of brought the tone of this down a little bit, right just there. But you know, it's important to know what you're up against, especially inside your own head. It's important to be able to admit when you feel shitty, because if you won't admit that you feel shitty, you're not gonna feel any less shitty anytime soon. So yeah, I guess that's that. I'll try and post another vlog in a week or so. I might not get around to it. The way things have going, the way things have been going, it's entirely possible that I'll just be like, fuck it, which is kind of what I did last week. But I'll see if I can. I might talk about some of the things I mentioned maybe talking about in this vlog. Thank you guys for watching, and for sitting through my strange and sometimes incoherent rambling. I really do appreciate you guys tuning in, even if it's just for a little while, even if it's just on a couple of vlogs, even if it's just because you're my family and you want to know how I am, and this is a good way to do it because I don't ever actually talk to you face to face. And I'm sorry about that. I just don't know what to say. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll try to keep making these as time goes by. I'll let you know how school and finals go. I'll think of things to actually talk about so I don't end up spewing out a strange spider web of words that gets all tangled up on itself and I end up completely tongue-tied and falling over, which happens. But yeah, it's been fun. So I guess this is SJ signing off.